Hello everyone, before we begin, welcome. We are T&Pdread. Subscribe to the channel, because what you are about to hear are true stories and tales that will make your skin crawl. Tell me in the comments from where you are listening to us, and at what time. Get ready that the last story will leave you paralyzed. Without more to talk about, let's start. I grew up in a town most maps won't even bother to mark anymore. Hollow Creek, West Virginia. You'd drive past the faded sign so fast you'd swear it never existed at all. I hadn't set foot there in over 30 years until last winter when my father died and left me the deed to the family cabin. I should have burned that deed the moment I saw it. My name's Adam Lewis. I'm 43 now, and before I tell you what happened, you need to understand that Hollow Creek isn't just abandoned, it's hungry. I left when I was 12. My father and I used to come here every summer to fish the creek that gave the town its name. The town was already half dead by the time I was born. A handful of families clinging to old clapboard houses, rusting trucks in the yards, and stories. Always the stories. Stories about why the mines shut down overnight. About how the water turned black. About children vanishing on their way home from the schoolhouse. I thought they were ghost tales old drunks told on porches to scare kids like me. But I should have listened closer. When Dad died, I was working night shifts at a warehouse in Ohio. The lawyer called, said Dad left me the cabin and some acres. I didn't want them, but I'd been behind on rent for months and thought maybe I could sell the land. So I drove back, down that narrow road choked with naked winter trees, back into the hollow where the sun always seemed too tired to shine. It looked the same, worse really. Sagging houses, shattered windows, the gas station sign hanging by a single rusty chain. The only thing that felt alive was the creek itself, a winding black vein that cut through town like a scar. When I pulled up to the cabin, the air was dead still. No birds, no wind, just the sound of water whispering through the trees. The first night I lay on the dusty old cot in Dad's bedroom. The wind outside sounded like voices. I told myself it was just the draft through rotten boards. But by midnight, I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate, like someone dragging a boot. When I flicked on my flashlight and peeked through the window, there was no one there. I should have left then, but I didn't. The next morning, I drove into what was left of town. I parked by the church, its steeple half collapsed, and looked for someone, anyone who could tell me who to talk to about selling the land. The only soul I found was an old man in a faded army coat, sitting on the church steps. His eyes were pale, milky, blind maybe, but they never looked away from me. "You Lewis's boy?" he rasped before I even opened my mouth. I nodded. Adam. My father was John Lewis. His cracked lips twisted in something that might have been a smile or a grimace. "He stayed too long. Like the rest of us, now you're back. Means you're staying too." I laughed it off, but his next words stuck to my spine like ice. "Don't listen to them when they call you. Creek's got a voice. It'll promise you things. Don't listen." I wanted to ask what he meant, but when I blinked, he was gone. Just an empty step and the echo of my own breath. That night, I sat by the window and stared at the creek behind the cabin. The moon was bright enough to turn the water into a ribbon of silver. And then I heard it. Not the rush of water. No, this was softer, like murmurs threading through the branches. It sounded like my father's voice, calling my name. I don't know how long I stood outside, barefoot in the frost, listening. The whispers grew clearer. "Adam, Adam, come home." I stepped closer to the bank. The icy water lapped at my toes, but I didn't feel the cold. I felt warmth, like an embrace, my father's arms, my mother's voice, though she'd been dead since I was 5. I don't remember walking into the water, but I remember the shock when it reached my chest. I remember a shape beneath the surface, pale, shifting, like a face just out of reach. Then hands gripped my shoulders and yanked me back. I coughed up black water on the bank, gasping for air, and looked up into the old man's blind eyes. "Didn't I tell you not to listen?" he hissed. His grip was like iron for a man who looked half dead himself. "The creek feeds on your wanting. It knows what you miss, what you ache for. It'll drown you in it." I tried to speak, but my teeth were chattering too hard. He pulled me to my feet. "You've got one chance, boy. Leave now. Never come back. Or it'll keep you like it kept the rest." I didn't sleep that night. At dawn, I packed what little I'd brought, slammed the cabin door behind me, and drove without looking back. I sold the deed for pennies to some out-of-state timber company. I didn't care. I just wanted it gone. Sometimes I wonder if they'll even make it out once they break ground. Sometimes I hear the creek in my dreams. My father's voice, my mother's laugh, calling me home. And sometimes I want to go back, but I don't. Because Hollow Creek never lets go. It just waits for you to come home. My name's Ethan Cole. I'm 36 years old and I haven't slept more than 3 hours a night in over a decade. They say you can't outrun your past, but I'm not trying to outrun mine. I'm trying to outrun a place. I was 19 when I first stumbled into Black Hollow, Maine, a town so deep in the woods it felt like the trees had swallowed it whole. I was on my way home from college for Thanksgiving break. I'd taken the back roads to avoid traffic. It was getting late, sleet tapping at my windshield, the forest crowding closer with every mile. I should have known something was off when my headlights caught the sign, Black Hollow, Esther 1846. The wood was cracked, the letters half rotted, and behind it the forest seemed to lean in like it was listening. I was almost out of gas, so I turned in. It felt like the right thing to do, like the road was leading me there. Black Hollow looked like a town frozen in time, clapboard houses leaning into the wind, a single streetlight flickering at the crossroad, and a diner that seemed impossibly bright against the night. I parked outside, telling myself I'd grab a coffee, ask for directions, and find a gas station. Inside, the diner was warm, too warm. The windows were fogged with steam, and the smell of coffee and burnt bacon made my stomach growl. A woman in a blue apron stood behind the counter, her hair pinned up in a style that looked 50 years out of date. "Cold night," she said without looking up from wiping a mug. Her voice was flat, like she'd said those words 1,000 times to people just like me. "Yeah," I said, glancing around. There were people in the booths, families, old men nursing black coffee, but they all sat too still. No one talked, no one ate. I sat at the counter. "Could I get a coffee? And is there a gas station nearby?" She set the mug down in front of me. "Gas station's been closed 20 years. She looked at me then, eyes gray and heavy with something I couldn't name. "You're not staying, are you?" I laughed. "No, ma'am, just passing through." She didn't smile back. Nobody just passes through Black Hollow. I should have left then, but I was 19, stupid, tired, half hypnotized by the road. I drank the coffee. It tasted like ashes. When I stood to pay, she grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. "If you hear the bell, don't answer it." I didn't know what she meant. I never got the chance to ask, because the lights went out. One moment the diner was humming with that too warm stillness. The next it was pitch black. I heard chairs scrape, soft footsteps, and then, from somewhere beyond the window, a bell rang. A tiny, delicate sound that cut through the dark like a blade. The people in the booths, the families, the old men, they rose all at once, moving like they were underwater. They walked to the door, single file, silent, and stepped out into the sleet. I turned to the waitress. She was staring at me like she wanted to say something, but instead she just shook her head and followed them. The door swung shut behind her. I was alone. Except I wasn't. The bell rang again, closer this time. I peered out the foggy window. The streetlight flickered, casting just enough glow for me to see a line of people moving down the street, toward the church at the far end of town. The bell rang a third time, louder, sharper. Not a church bell, a handbell. I heard it in my bones. Something in me, some stupid curiosity, or maybe the same force that pulled me off the highway in the first place, made me follow. I stepped out into the freezing rain, my sneakers soaking through in seconds. I joined the procession at the back, trying not to look too hard at the people around me. Their faces were blank, eyes wide. Some of them whispered under their breath, but the words melted into the rain. The church was old, steeple leaning so far it looked ready to fall. Candlelight flickered inside, shadows dancing behind warped glass. The line of people filed in. I hesitated at the threshold. The bell rang again, so loud now it made my ears ring. Inside, the pews were full. Every seat, every aisle, packed with people dripping wet and silent. At the front stood a figure in a dark robe, back turned to us, head bowed. In his hand, the bell. He rang it once more, and the sound seemed to swell, filling the church like thick smoke. He turned. His face was hidden by the hood, but I swear I could feel him staring right at me. "Welcome home, Ethan." His voice was everywhere, inside my head, in the rafters, under the floorboards. My knees buckled. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The bell rang again, softer this time, like a lullaby. The people around me began to hum, a single note, rising and falling with the bell. The figure in the robe stepped closer. I could smell wet earth, something rotten beneath it. "You've come to keep the light," he said. I didn't know what he meant, but then I realized the windows were gone. No rain outside, no wind, just darkness pressing against the glass like a hand. The streetlight flickered once, then went out. The bell fell silent. I don't remember how I got back to my car. I don't remember driving out of town. I only remember waking up on the side of County Road 27 at dawn, shivering behind the wheel, my gas tank somehow full. They say Black Hollow burned down in the 70s, that there's nothing there but charred foundations and empty woods. But I know better. Some nights, when the wind's just right, I hear the bell outside my window, soft, inviting. I don't answer. I never answer. Because if I do, I know the last light of Black Hollow will claim me for good. And the dark has been waiting long enough. My name's Michael Rourke. I'm 41 years old, and I haven't set foot in Louisiana for over 15 years. Not since I left Bayou's Hollow behind, or tried to. If you're smart, you'll never go looking for it. But if you do, don't say I didn't warn you. I grew up hearing whispers about that place. My mother's family lived out near Opelousas, surrounded by cypress groves and brackish water that seemed to breathe when the wind shifted. My Uncle Jasper used to tell me stories on his porch while he whittled driftwood, stories about the Hollow. He said it wasn't a real town anymore, just rotting cabins perched on stilts above the black water. But people still lived there, people who never came to town, never showed their faces at church or the feed store. He called them les oubliés, the forgotten ones. They were cursed, he said, bound to the swamp by blood and secrets older than the state itself. The Hollow was where you went if you wanted to disappear, or if the swamp wanted to disappear you. When I was 24, I was too full of my own damn pride to believe any of that. I dropped out of college, drifted through half the Gulf Coast, and ended up back in Opelousas with nothing but a beat-up pickup and a head full of bad ideas. So when Uncle Jasper died, drunk and alone in his boat on the bayou, I went to claim his shack, half out of spite, half out of nowhere else to go. The night I arrived, the sky was bruised with a thunderstorm that never quite broke. The dirt road was so slick with mud my tires spun and slipped, and branches slapped at my windshield like bony fingers. I found the shack where the map said it'd be, leaning like a drunk against a cypress tree, half sunk into the marsh. Inside was exactly what you'd expect: old bottles, an unmade cot, and the smell of stale tobacco and swamp rot. But taped to the wall above the bed was a map, hand-drawn, yellowed, edges curling like burnt paper. In my uncle's spidery handwriting, 3 words were scrawled at the bottom: "Don't go there." A red circle marked a spot about 5 miles deeper into the swamp, Bayou's Hollow. I should have burned the map. Instead, I folded it up and stuffed it in my pocket. I spent 3 nights in that shack. Each night I heard them, voices drifting through the cypress in a language I didn't recognize. I'd stand on the porch with a flashlight, sweeping the black water, but there was never anything there except the soft hiss of the wind through the reeds. The 4th night, I woke to a knock on the door. Not tapping, not scratching. A deliberate knock 3 times, polite as a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. I opened the door. Nobody. Just the moon hanging low over the swamp and the sound of something slipping beneath the water. I should have packed up then, driven back to Texas, changed my name and anything but what I did. I grabbed my uncle's old skiff and the map. I told myself I'd just see the hollow. Just prove to myself it was nothing but stories. The swamp swallowed the light the deeper I went. Cypress knees rose like grave markers from the black water, and the Spanish moss dripped from the branches like funeral veils. I killed the outboard and drifted, paddle dipping soundlessly. Then I saw it. A cluster of stilt houses half collapsed into the muck, their tin roofs rusted to the color of dried blood. The hollow. A single lantern flickered in the window of the biggest cabin, casting ripples of sickly yellow across the water. I tied the skiff to a rotting post and climbed onto the boardwalk. The wood moaned under my boots. I could smell smoke. Not firewood, but something sweeter, like burning herbs. The door to the cabin swung open before I knocked. Inside, a woman sat by a table crowded with candles and jars of things I didn't want to name. Her eyes were pale and clouded, but I knew she saw me. "You shouldn't be here, Cher," she said in a voice dry as dead leaves. I wanted to ask who she was, but my mouth wouldn't work right. It was like the swamp air thickened my tongue. She beckoned me closer with a crooked finger. I stepped inside without meaning to. She touched my chest, just 2 fingers, light as moth wings, and the world tilted. I saw my mother's face crying over a photo of my father. I saw Uncle Jasper sinking beneath black water, his eyes open, mouth full of bubbles. I saw myself, older than I was, standing knee-deep in the swamp, calling out to shadows that never answered. "You brought it with you," she whispered. "The hollow doesn't want you. It wants what you carry." I didn't know what she meant. I tried to speak, but my jaw locked. She pressed a tiny bone charm into my palm, smooth and warm like it had just come from inside something living. When the hollow calls, you don't answer. When the water rises, you stay dry. When the wind whispers your name, you forget it. Then she blew out the candles and the world went black. I woke in my uncle's skiff, drifting back toward the shack. The charm was gone. So was the map. I burned the shack to the pilings that night. I drove north until the swamp was just a smear in the rearview mirror. But some nights, I wake choking on swamp air, my sheets damp as if I'd climbed out of the bayou instead of my bed. Sometimes I hear the knock, 3 times, polite and patient, and I know the hollow is waiting. If you ever find yourself lost on the back roads near Opelousas, and the swamp looks like it wants to swallow you, remember this. It already has. And you don't get to leave something like that behind. You carry it with you. And one night, it'll come knocking. Some towns die quiet. Ashcroft didn't. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it screaming still. My name's Daniel Ward. I'm 39 years old and I dig tunnels for a living. Or at least I did before Ashcroft took that from me. If you've never heard of Ashcroft, Colorado, don't feel bad. It's not on the maps anymore. Hell, it shouldn't even be in stories. But here I am, telling you anyway. Maybe because some curses get lighter when you share them. Maybe because I'm tired of hearing the screams alone. I was a contractor, explosive specialist mostly. I'd been working the Rockies for over a decade, helping reopen old mining veins for the new companies that came sniffing around when copper and silver prices jumped. They said Ashcroft was a gold vein that never ran dry, just buried so deep the old-timers gave up. I should have known that wasn't the real reason they left. It was late September when we got there. There were 6 of us on the crew, all roughnecks like me. We rode up the switchback roads in battered trucks, past aspen trees turning gold and red, past the broken skeletons of cabins, half swallowed by snowdrifts that lingered year-round. Ashcroft looked like every other ghost town at first. Empty storefronts, a busted saloon sign swaying in the wind, a tiny church whose bell tower leaned so far it looked ready to collapse into the trees. But under all that was the mine, a black mouth in the side of the mountain, rimmed with frost even on warm days, dripping rust and secrets. The first week was nothing but grunt work, stabilizing supports, laying new track. The pay was good, the air thin but clean. At night we drank whiskey by the campfire and told stories about the old miners who dug this hole back in the 1880s. Nobody talked about how the mine really closed. Not yet. But Ashcroft talks when you're not listening. The first sign was the echo. Tunnels always echo. That's just rock physics. But here, it was different. The deeper we went, the more it didn't sound like our voices bouncing back. It sounded like other voices answering, whispering from the dark, just beyond the beam of your headlamp. One night, Jake, our foreman, told us what he'd found in the old ledgers we dug up in the town office. The last shift that worked Ashcroft went in March 13th, 1894, 40 men. Only 12 came back up. They said the others got trapped when a shaft collapsed, but Jake found notes from a local priest who wrote about what the survivors told him. They didn't say the shaft collapsed. They said the mountain opened its mouth and swallowed them whole. They said they heard knocking in the walls, voices calling from the rock. They said something came up from below, something that smelled like burnt meat and moved like smoke. After that, nobody slept much. I remember the night it got me clear as the cold in my lungs right now. We were blasting a new side shaft. The charge went off clean, but the dust didn't clear like it should have. It hung thick in the tunnel, a choking yellow haze that clung to your skin like oil. I turned my lamp into it and saw shapes, figures moving just beyond the dust. Men in old miners' clothes, their faces slack, eyes bright as furnace coals. They didn't speak. They just opened their mouths wide, too wide, and the sound that came out wasn't a scream or a moan. It was the echo, the same one we'd been hearing, coming back for us. I ran, left my gear, left my crew. I tripped over the tracks and cracked my head on a beam. When I woke, the tunnel was empty, except for me. My lamp was dead. I crawled blind for hours, feeling the walls press in, hearing that echo in every heartbeat. I swear the rock pulsed under my palms, warm, like flesh. When I finally stumbled out into the night, the camp was gone. The trucks were still there, keys in the ignitions, doors wide open. But the tents were empty, gear scattered like someone left in a panic. The radio was just static. The sky above the mountain flickered with a weird red glow like distant fire, but there was no smoke, no heat. I tried to drive down the switchback road, but a rock slide blocked the pass. I walked 15 miles down that frozen slope until I found a ranger station. When they went up to check, Ashcroft was just gone. No trucks, no tents, just snow drifting over empty buildings. They found Jake 3 weeks later, 40 miles north. His boots were gone. His tongue was missing. His fingernails were packed with coal dust. The rest of them, never found. They tell me I'm lucky I survived, that I made it out when the mountain tried to take us back. But I know better. Some nights I wake in the dark and my house echoes. I hear pickaxes ringing deep under my bed. I smell burning hair, taste copper in my mouth. Sometimes I see my breath misting in the hall, even in summer. I feel the cold of the shaft reaching for me. I don't dig anymore. Haven't set foot underground since that night. But the hollow under Ashcroft is patient. It remembers me. If you ever find yourself on a rocky trail above Aspen and you hear knocking under your feet, run. Don't look back. Don't breathe. Don't listen. Because the mountain keeps what it takes. And if it spits you out, it just means you've got work to do.
If these stories made an impact on you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced something similar. Turn on the bell for more stories like these. See you soon. Until next time.